everybody, you beautiful people, you. I'm Munchables. I'm joined by Orcs once again as we head into our last game of the day. And you know what? It's been straight up bangers today. We've had upsets galore. And I'm hoping that we finish on a big bang as well. Orcs, how are you holding up, mate? It's been 2 days back to back. I know you're excited to get back on the cast. I've been excited to be casting with you again. It feels like it's been good. A while since this UK reunion has
been ages. I mean, it's been like a year and a half, and it has been too long. And honestly, today, like yesterday was great, but today the games have just been amazing throughout. And I really feel like this was the one I was hyped to. It's kind of like the dessert at the end of the day that would get to enjoy. I have got huge expectations for this one because I think Big are by all means coming in as favorites. They are definitely a stacked roster. Number one in the Prime League is not something you could ignore. But I look at Mkers and they have solid players on their team. They have 4 out of 5 players of experience at E-Masters main event, not just in the play-ins, at the main event. And they have some big names on the likes of Doxy in the top lane, Tax in the jungle, Guubi and Click in the bot lane. I don't think you can just put these guys down as, like a minor region team. And the PG Nationals have shown that they can play upset.
Yeah, exactly. And, Makers it's an organization that's been here before, right? It's an organization that we're hoping to see pop off, but I want to focus on that top lane because for anyone that's missed us before the break, this is Makers coming up against Big here for our final game of the day. And I was talking to you off stage. I was talking to you behind the scenes here. Off stage, behind the scenes, we're not in a place. We're at the opposite sides of the same country here. We talked over Discord, let's be real here. But we talked about the top lane matchup, Doxy versus SLT, because both of these guys love to step up on the carries and love to have individual performances coming onto the roof.
Yeah, I mean, Doxy in play-ins was one of the players. One of the top laners with the highest damage share of his team because he isn't a tank player. He just isn't picking them up. He is playing the more carry role, things like the Jace, things like the Gnar. I think his SLT also has his champion as wheelhouse and will pick the Jace. So a lot of the games, we have a battle around mid, they lean towards bot lane, and that's where the focus. But we may see something a bit different from this game.
Yeah, we'll have to wait and see. Twist of Fate, the first ban, is going to be answered with Seraphine, and then Varus as the second ban here. This is an interesting ban list priority coming out from Makers. Definitely a different read on the meta to some of the other teams we've seen.
Well, he's targeting very specific picks, so maybe they have a plan, and these are things that they're potentially concerned about. TF obviously can influence the side lanes quite effectively. Varus pretty solid if you want to find engage, so maybe they're looking towards a potential 1-3-1 on the back of this. Could see, but Gnar going to get banned away. Very rare that we see Gnar banned in the first rotations. We haven't really seen that too much in E-Masters, so clearly targeting a pick that honestly, Doxy was playing this before it was strong. Like in the recent times, obviously it's been a lot more prevalent, but he was playing it when, bit of a hipster, playing it when it was a lot worse.
Cool.
Yeah, before it was cool.
Yeah, so Doxy definitely no stranger to the Gnar pick. He played it 10 times across the course of this split with an 80% win rate. Not too shabby. But tied on that is 10 games on the Gangplank. So that's the pick that I'm really hoping for coming out from Doxy. It's one of the ones that he's definitely happy to go for. But things like the Jace, things like the Aurelia up there, Aatrox, Renekton, all of these top laners that can very much have a big influence on the game. Those are the kind of picks that Doxy likes to go for.
And we've seen here Orianna being banned again, something we don't often see too much banned in the first rotation. There is a ton of power picks open. There's a Hecarim, so we get first picked away. There's a Thresh. There's the likes of the Tristana. There's so many picks and options here. Big have a really good solid choice to take in the second rotation, and Tristana seems like a pretty obvious one. And the only question is really, are they just going to take the Thresh here as well?
I thought that was locked in for a split second there, and I was very taken aback. It's going to be Lee Sin being hovered. I don't anticipate that Karim's going to lock that one in. I'll talk about something else for a minute, because Lilia obviously got banned away, but things like the Olaf are available. Udyr going to be locked in instead. It's just going to be the speed demons in the jungle, disappointingly, here for our two teams.
Yeah, and I think in this situation, Makers could... Again, it depends what they want to go for. If they want to follow up the dive, there's things like the Kai'Sa open and available. You go for an aggressive support in this situation. Rel's an option, Alice is an option. Flick has a pretty diverse pool when it comes to that. Or could even see the Senna, and this is something that they will actually play with Sion in the bot lane. Pretty big fans on it. And what's interesting compared to other teams is it's actually Click who plays the Senna and it's Guubi who plays the Sion. They actually flip it in that regard. Not sure if they're going to necessarily pick up the Sion right here and now, exploring their options in this situation.
That'd be the question, because obviously they could always flip it around as well and bring out something like the Tahm Kench if they wanted to. But now, going to lock in this first rotation. The Sylas being hovered right now. You'd expect it to be the support, and it is going to be that Sion. So, Guubi with the Sion. It'll be the Senna going over towards Click, as you say. And already we're getting some spicy drafts. We had a Zinzao and stuff in the last game. Now we're getting the Senna Sion combo. Dan, I feel like we've been blessed today with these drafts.
We really have. We've had some great games, great drafts, a lot of fun. And I'm just curious how big an answer is capable. They're actually going for this Sylas themselves. Pretty good choice in terms of ultimates. You've got the Hecarim ult, really solid one. The Siren ult, decent for that extra CC when you get up close. It does mean, I mean, we could potentially see it flex on the top lane for the most part. I expect this to be Sylas mid and Tristana going bot lane. And they're going to go in with the Rise ban.
So Rise being taken off of the board. Bit of an interesting ban here. It's not something Zwyroo's played across the course of this split. He's played it one time, but perhaps something that they just don't want to deal with if Reeker's taking the Sylas towards the mid lane. Maybe just a pick that doesn't want to answer. And with Twisted Fate being taken off the board, Rise being taken off the board, a lot of these global mid laners just being completely denied.
Still a Galio, though, as an option, but not sure if they'll necessarily want to take that one. It would allow a lot of dive potential if they needed. Tahm Kench going to come out as a ban, and that seems like they haven't really done their research, I'm going to be honest. That's a Sion going bot lane 100%. Doxy isn't playing tanks recently, and that's the combo they always use when they have Senna, so kind of a throwaway ban in that situation. It does set them up for maybe a Thresh pick, so maybe they were concerned about a flex, but I don't think it's super likely. I think Mkers just ban the Thresh in this situation, and they should be happy. They actually go for the Alistar, so big. You can just take the Thresh here. I think they'll be pretty comfortable with that one, and then you can leave last pick for SLT in the top lane. We said this top lane matchup could be spicy, and I think counter pick for him would be really valuable.
So let's see what Big are going to opt into with their support pick. Also, things like the Leona as well, which we've not seen masses of across the course of the split. Even things like the Gragas as well. They seem to have fallen out of favor, but can offer a lot in trying to force these all-ins. Nautilus also an option here, but Rakan as well. Another pick that has been on kind of the edge of the meta, right? When a lot of these things like the Rel and the Alistar are banned away, Rakan can tick a lot of the same boxes.
Yeah, I think maybe as well they're looking for a bit of an engage potential. Udyr doesn't offer too much of it, and the thing is, I feel like SLT is probably going to play something for himself, for his lane, not necessarily forming with the team. And the fact you have this Rakan means you have a lot of maneuverability, dodging away from the Sion pressure. See, Mkers potentially hovering with the Cassiopeia, and I like this pick in this situation. A lot of value from the miasma, and it makes your front to back so good with this team in the late game. The scaling, insane already for this composition.
And this is something Zwyroo's played a single game of across the course of this split. So definitely we're seeing Mkers coming in from an interesting angle here, where you've got obviously the Senna and the Sion. We've seen from them across the split. Cassiopeia less so. The Rise that got banned away from them. I don't know if that's maybe information that they've gleaned from scrims or something, but now we talked about Doxy loves to play these carries up in the top side, and Renekton will be the choice.
We have to see. You know, you've been given this counter pick as SLT. You like to play carries in the top lane. I think this is an opportunity where you look for it. Could
Jace
take something. Open. Yeah, Jace is an option. Potentially could go in a different direction. That would definitely be spicy if they're looking that one.
That would be a direction. I'm hyped to see it. It's something that's typically that great unless you're against the tanks. Quinn comes in, though. This is the counter pick. Now, this is not something SLT is known for playing, but is very, very good in this Renekton matchup.
Yeah, and it gives you a win con, because realistically, I'm just going to say it, you don't win team fights in the late game. I don't see a way you find headway against this bulky front line and this insane heavy scaling back line. I think you need an alternative win condition. You have a good 1-3-1. Sylas is in the side lane, and if this Quinn gets rolling, this is a good matchup for you. As long as you don't get caught out by Taxa, SLT should be able to run away with this matchup and get control, and you can apply pressure in the side lane.
We'll have to see, but on the other side for Mkers here, kind of the opposite story, right? Where in a team fight, you're feeling fantastic. You've got a Senna that you can just keep these team fights going forever. You build up the range over time. You've also got a Cassiopeia that's just going to burn through any semblance of a tank. So that feels like a good win condition. But what we've seen across the course of the day, Dan, is that a lot of these teams are winning by spreading the other team across the map, right? Trying to pressure in multiple zones. That feels like where SLT and the squad are going to have a much bigger advantage. And perhaps that's the style of winning that is been more preferable in EU Masters today.
Well, I think something you said in the last game was how when you're ahead and you're able to do that, feels great. You can spread out the map, you can get control, the enemy team has to respond. But when you're behind, it's very difficult because the pace is going to be set by the other team. So I think it's definitely an option. We saw it work in the last game, but we need Big to come out strong. There's been scenarios where Udyr has been able to find 3-level leads over Hecarim if you can get the ball rolling in the jungle matchup. I want something like that from this game. I want to see Karim finding momentum and to use that to snowball his team. And something I will say about Taxa is he's effective at playing for his lanes, but he's not always the most effective at playing for himself. Sometimes a bit gank heavy. And if you catch him out on those, if he falls behind, Big could quickly take control of this game.
And let's reset what the stakes are here, what the expectations are here for our two teams. You mentioned him Big, very much in a position where if they can snowball, they can take the game, and you anticipate that should be the way that this goes. This is the first seed from Prime League, right? Prime League definitely a league that commands a lot of respect. And maybe finds an early pick here. Guubi face checks into the jungle. Reeker is moving over as well. Could go for the E. In fact, knock up forces the flash. And Guubi with no flash available. That's going to be a rough start to the laning phase for him.
Yeah, a little bit late lane. Just have TP, so if he is concerned about that, can just get straight back in. But flash down means you could be a vulnerable target. They are going to go for the TP. And critically, you see Taxa starting on the top side. Makes sense because Renekton's not going to do much against the Quinn anyway. But fortunately, if Mkers can get control of the lane, they shouldn't be too worried about a level 2 coming out from Big's bot lane, because this is a bot lane who typically do like to challenge in those all-ins. They will look for those fights, and seeing it already being in the flash, they will abuse that.
Yeah, I mean, that's a huge opportunity for Seaz to try and find a way in, try and find the all-in. With that Tristana, you're very good at just shoving the lane as well if you want to just try and pressure on the early Drakes, because let's remember, this is an Udyr in the jungle. Whenever there's an Udyr in the jungle, stacking Drakes is always going to be an option for that team, especially if you've got priority in your mid and bot lane. So feels like Big have got a pretty clear win condition in the early game, but they also have priority on the top side. It feels like across the lanes, they're looking real good for just a win lane, win game kind of strategy.
Yep, famous words coming out from Gullborg. Win lane, win game. Definitely think we could see that one here. And it needs to be, because we've hammered on it so much. Scaling is just obscene from Mkers in this situation. I want to be watching what Karim's doing in this jungle, where he looks to influence more. He is pathing towards the top side, and he can easily take Skull on that side of the map. The only concern is that lack of priority mid, but realistically, the Cassiopeia doesn't really have the mana pool at this point in the game to skirmish. Like, burning through a full pool of mana is probably enough to kill one person, if that. And obviously with the sustain coming in from both Reeker and Karim, it's just not a fight you're willing to take. So it does have that control, but probably isn't going to be able to do too much with it.
Yeah, so we'll have to see if they're going to be able to get the ball rolling in this early game. It's going to be a quiet start as our two junglers finish their first full clears here, and they're going to be on opposite sides of the map, so you'd anticipate even trades on the Scuttle Crabs. Nice presence of mind here from Taxa. We'll be able to clear the ward away. Doesn't go towards the Scuttle Crab though. Just going to recall on this one. Karim looking towards a dive here onto Doxy. SLT wanting to get himself a bit of gold. The flash comes out from Doxy though. He cleared the wave. He got out with his life.
Yeah, good decision, good presence of mind. Doesn't even allow them to try the dive there by taking out those last couple of minions. Yes, the flash goes down, but reset was actually coming in from Taxa. He did actually cancel it to clear the scuttle. He can now be pathing towards the top side to pick up his Gromp, so there will be some coverage in this situation. But how's that?
Zwyroo's in trouble right here. Reeker goes in to start the all-in, but man, that W is real good at stopping ganks, right? The slow, the grounding, there's nothing that Karim can do to close the gap.
Yeah, I mean, Zwyroo, really strong pick here with the Cassiopeia, and I feel like it's kind of underrated in the current meta. The problem with it is you're not as good at contesting priority, and that's super important. But there are situations like this where you're not too concerned about the threat from the Sylas, and the Cassiopeia just fits so well in this composition. There's so much mobility on the side of Big. It's only Karim who doesn't have a dash, and so you just get so much value. And again, the ability to shred will be big. They are
Like
the
some
2v2
trouble
here.
All in onto the center. The double flash to dodge the knockup. That was beautiful from Big. Final auto. It doesn't quite do it. Click's still surviving. And now they have to try and run. Seaz gets knocked up. Zwyroo arrives. And it's an easy first blood. What a turnaround from the Makers.
They committed both flashes. They were going all in on that play. And we said they looked to challenge at the 2v2. They nearly found it. It just wasn't quite enough. Click using the lack of vision in the brush to find a bit of distance, using the piercing light to heal himself as well. Really solid defensive play. And then we see Zwyroo able to TP in and pick up a kill for himself in the Cassiopeia, which again, you're perfectly happy with that one.
Yeah, definitely going to be happy to pick up the first blood. Let's take another look, because that looked like a guaranteed kill. It felt like they've got this one in the bag.
Yeah, so all the burst comes in here, but Click able to just buy so much time. Doesn't actually, there's a ward in that brush, but the root comes in, flashes from the rocket jump damage. The last auto is enough. The health potion ticking saves him from the quill, and then you know, flash is already down. All your mobility is down for Seaz here. The miasma just essentially secures that completely, and then they're also able to get the dragon off the back of it.
That sucks for Big now. That really sucks, because you've got this winning bot lane duo that we talked about. They had the advantage because Guubi had to flash at level 1, so there was an opportunity to punish. You had pushing lanes across the board to work with. We talked about stacking dragons. We talked about how all of these early game advantages could compound. Not anymore. Not with that fight going the way that it went. Now with a Drake going over to Makers as well. That early win condition feels much harder to execute for Big.
Yeah, absolutely. Tax has been having a great game as well. He's ahead of Farm actually on the Udyr. So we're talking about potentially you can run away with this matchup for the Udyr. It's not really happening. Doxy is down in farm, but that is expected. You're comfortable in this scenario. You got the plated seal cap, so taking a lot less damage. And critically, Zwyroo in the mid lane on this Cassiopeia. He's now got the Lost Chapter. He has the mana just to shove the wave in endlessly, as we can see here. Reeker kind of just has to answer this.
So Dan, I don't want to get too excited here. I'm going to ask you a question instead of just making a statement.
Hit me with it.
Today has been the day of upsets. And with that first blood, with a bit of a goal lead, with a dragon going the way of Makers, are we looking down the barrel of another upset? Are Big going to lose control of what's ahead of them?
There's definitely potential for it. There's still windows absolutely for Big to come back in this one, but they need to be proactive. They sit back, this game is just going to get more and more in favor of Makers. So yeah. I mean, I feel like the games before this, I didn't expect upsets. But this one, I felt like there's definitely a possibility. And with the way this game started out, with the way the draft has gone, I think there's a good chance.
That was a very sad knockup from Seaz there. He's manages to get the double knockup, but Guardian exists. No damage is done, and he just realizes he has to back away from that one. Zwyroo and Doxy moving in together. The solo laners gleaning control of Karim's jungle away from him. Gonna drop a ward as Doxy just dashes out the top side as well. Tax is here as well. Karim moves in, but he's bitten off more than he can chew. The fear is going to be there. Zwyroo then gets the stun, pushes him into the grounding. Oh, it's like an orchestrated play. That was beautiful.
That was flawless, honestly. Taxa getting past the flash, knocking him straight into the petrifying gaze. Just beautiful to see. Great play. SLT trying to make things a little bit difficult for Taxa there. He was spotted on the ward though. They know that the Quinn is here. I think they're just catching the waves and then they're going to rotate. You also see that Click start to move up as well. Big can't take this fight.
Well, they might try anyway. Zwyroo's over here. Reeker going to steal the ulti away. TP being channeled. This is going to be Guubi. Guubi, joining the fight once more. Reeker is stuck a little bit here. Guubi's there to try and stop him escaping. Forces the flash out. Guubi's low, and SLT can't finish the kill off. Now the rest of the squad can move in. Smite will be there. So Makers get the Herald for themselves and maybe a fight as well. Doxy doing a lot of damage. Karim goes down for the second time in this play. And Makers, they're just completely in charge.
And the thing is as well, is Big committed their team to move up, but it was late. You can see Tristana's roamed up. The Rakan's roamed up. So it's not like they went for a cross-map play. It's not like, oh, okay, Makers brought 5 members. They get the Herald, we get something else. They committed resources there and they still lost out. The thing here is it's just 2 members and the first ones to act are Makers, but this team comp is so good when it's grouped. And it feels like Big are really split in this situation. Reeker gets chunked out, burns the ult initially, And you can see that Doxy's able to step up. He's a bit too bulky, and the AD carry still isn't there. They don't have the consistent damage to kill the Renekton right now, and this CC layering just works so well.
So what we're saying is the play not so big after all from Big. And 2,000 gold lead now in favor. Say that again, sorry.
That was big from Big, but not in a good way.
I see. Well, not working out for them so far for our Prime League first seed. And our PG National second seed looking pretty good in the game. Looking like they're the ones that are going to set the tempo for this early game. And importantly, Zwyroo here, stepping forward with 3 kills. Already has the hat trick for himself in the early game. That first Drake went their way as well. It feels like they're set up for success when you've got this scaling mage in the mid lane that already finished a mythic and has the tier mostly stacked. At 10 minutes, that's an amazing feeling. But Doxy might not be getting an amazing feeling in this one because Karim's moving in. Reeker's there as well. He just looks to all in SLT but goes back underneath the tower. And Reeker's there to quite easily punish the play. SLT the one to get the kill. And it's a nice little tower dive from Big. A lot of people committed, but they get the kill.
I think it's the right decision, though. You are starting to feel this game slipped away a bit. You go for a cross-map play. You don't want to fight this dragon, so you punish Doxy, and you're going to get a couple of plates. And again, this gold is going on to SLT. We said that's a potential win condition. He's nearly stacked up his cull as well, so should be able to get quite a bit in terms of spending his gold.
Yeah, so SLT going to be in a good spot, has that Noon Quiver, just needs a couple more minions to finish the call. So this recall will be a big recall for him because he also got a couple of plates to work with there as well. There you go, there's the call procking for himself, gets to crash yet another wave. And Doxy, you know, he's Renekton into Quinn. This was never going to be a fun time when the rest of Big also gets involved in the play. It's always going to be hard. Click could be in trouble. Doesn't look like Big want to punish for now.
And it is an Ocean Soul, and I feel like you're already struggling in the front-to-back team fights against Mkers, just in the team fights in general. If they get an Ocean Soul as well, this front line is gonna feel pretty invincible, in all honesty. So Big, a lot of teams we see when it comes to that third dragon, that's where you want to prevent them. That's the point. So it's looking at what Big can do in the next 4 minutes, so that when we get to that dragon, we'll say, okay, now they're confident to take the fight. Now they're confident to do something. You can see they're moving around as a unit. Potentially could be looking for Zwyroo here, but he backs off very effectively. And now it's Mkers making the move up towards the top side. Tax is going in.
Yeah, Taxa trying to dive onto SLT, but a great flash. It's going to mean he's just completely fine. Zwyroo's arrived a little bit late to the play. Karim is nearby. Maybe a collapse could come out from Big, but I think they've decided that's not the play for now. Important to mention as well, SLT did finish his Kraken Slayer on that previous recall that we talked about. He's the first, or one of the first mythics in the game here. So that 1v1 matchup for Doxy is only going to get worse from this point on. Quinn is going to be able to put a lot of silent pressure on.
Unfortunately, it's a Kraken Slayer, and it's actually a crocodile, not a Kraken. So not sure how useful it'll be.
Should have gone for the Kraken Slayer instead. That would have been the play SLT. But you know, it is what it is. When we're bringing out English wordplay for a French player, that feels a little bit unfair.
Absolutely. Zwyroo gonna pick up the blue buff. Oh,
I do want to quickly mention, by the way, SLT. For anyone that doesn't know, he's a French player playing in Germany. The SLT actually stands for Salut à tous, which is hello everybody. So if you see him popping up in a team fight, that's probably what he's screaming.
I'm not sure you pronounce the S at the end of it. Would not just be...
You do, I asked.
Do you? Oh, okay.
Yeah, there you go.
Told me. You told me very quickly on that one. I guess
because I didn't think you did either, but apparently you do. Here we go. A couple of turret plates going the way of SLT here. Does have to back away. You can see that Karim would love to go for a dive, but not the play right now. Doxy doesn't have his ultimate, but I guess with Zwyroo missing, with Taxa also a little bit AWOL on the map, they couldn't commit to this one. But 2 minutes until that Drake, and you said that Big needed to make things happen in this 4-minute window. Not a lot's going on for now.
Yeah, the state of the game hasn't really changed at all, and I was hoping that we'd see something that made me think, okay, Big should be comfortable to take this dragon. It hasn't really arrived, and now they're actually looking towards this mid lane tower. Oh, Sion doesn't quite connect with Reeker. I think if they hit Reeker there, he might have just gone down. But they get the mid tower. It's going to allow them to shove it more, get a bit more control of the map, and it's going to allow them, again, they're translating this control into this bot side river. Big might end up just having to give up this dragon if something doesn't change soon.
Well, things are looking pretty good right now for the Makers, but again, they're playing this fairly slow. We talked about it. They have a pretty late game win composition. What am I saying? Words are hard, Dan.
Yeah.
They have a pretty late game win condition, so feels fine for them to just chill out for now. Doxy is unfortunately the one that loses out in this situation, right? Because the longer that you just stall out this laning phase, the longer Doxy has to deal with this horrendous matchup that SLT clearly has played before, clearly knows what he's doing, finishes that tower off. That's going to be the first tower of the game. 4 big, finally evening up in those towers. And they're closing that gold gap ever so slightly. But we're 60 seconds out now, so let's talk map play. What do Makers need to do if they want to get this third Drake on the trot?
Well, I think their plan initially is they might actually look towards the Herald beforehand and then translate that down. I think either way, you want to set up control, you want to force Big to face check you, but you need to be quick because you can see pings already coming out on the bot side of the map from Big. And honestly, I feel like as great as Herald is, the Dragon is probably going to serve Makers better in this situation. The Solar's potential win con is huge, and it really puts the pressure on Big to make things happen, which is where they can actually falter. So they decide, Herald, not too concerned, they'll get some vision down, and they are now looking to move down towards the bot side.
Quinn also real good into the Sion. Guubi does not want this 1v1 matchup, especially when there's a Kraken Slayer.
Doxy, I need you down here. You can take this. And Doxy's like, nah, I'm having a great time.
I finally just killed. He just cleared an entire minion wave unharassed. Like, that's a first for him this game. It's not a fun matchup. So now, Drake spawning, as you rightly say, they leave the Herald in the end. Makers with control of the river. Seaz here. Gonna have to try and go in. SLT just casually sidesteps the ulti. And Guubi gonna be chomped on up. SLT's in trouble because Tax is diving the backline. Karim being forced away. It feels like Makers are kind of pinned here. They are in a 5-man stack though. A bit of a death ball here as Reeker goes in with the ulti. Doxy jumping onto the backline. Karim rooted. This could be an opportunity, but Makers don't commit. Tristana arriving as well. Feels like a lot happened for not much to happen there, Dan. Oh, there we go. Doxy flashes in, looking for the kill. The Tristana is down. This is the moment for Makers as Reeker desperate to get out over the wall. Doxy trying to block him, but can't do the job. Taxa moves into the pit.
And I think at this point, they're going to start sustaining up. The healing coming out from the Senna. I don't think you can reapproach this one. Big just going to end up leaving, and the Dragon does go over to Makers. A little bit messy. In all honesty, the initial engage didn't go quite as well as Makers had hoped. And again, their team fighting, the team fights excel for them when they're fighting front to back. Looked like they maybe overreached for a second, but they managed to reset. And then Doxy came in with that clutch flash. And big thing is you secure that Dragon. And now I'm looking at the timer, 4 minutes 50. If you get that Ocean Soul, I think Big are probably just out of this game. It's going to be so hard. And your only real win condition then is this Quinn. But if Makers keep grouping for these objectives, you don't really get time.
So let's take another look at the bit of a fiesta that went on. Let's be honest, the start of this fight was very confusing. A
lot of things missing and not really connecting in this situation. So Big are able just to get away initially, and they look like they want to collapse into Reeker and Karim, but they managed to navigate it and get out. And this is the point where the fight's kind of reset, but Doxy finds this beautiful window. Keduii's just walking up, has flash, has his rocket jump, but the stun comes out, and instantly the miasma follows in this situation from Zwyroo, and that's just a death sentence. You're just down. Tries to walk out of it, isn't able to, and Big instantly know they've lost their Tristana. They aren't finishing this fight.
Yeah, that miasma. Multiple times this game, Zwyroo has been getting great miasmas. Doxy now, he's still in the awful matchup, just on the other side of the map at this point as Guubi has moved up to the top side. And I want to quickly mention something. Well, maybe I don't have time, because SLT going to move in. Okay, they're going to back away. Yeah, that was a little bit crazy to try and force that play there. I want to quickly mention something, because this is now, Dan, the second time in 2 days that we're seeing the PG national teams really give it to one of the teams from the Prime League. This is the first seed from the Prime League in Big that are now struggling against Makers. Yesterday, we saw Mouse struggling versus Mako as well. Both teams from the same regions here. And once again, we're seeing the PG Nationals, stepping up to the plate and really showing the Prime League that they cannot be underestimated.
I mean, I completely agree. And I think the big thing for me in this game is we're looking at this 200 CS, 4-0 Cassiopeia from Zwyroo. This is the only player on this team who hasn't played in EU Masters before. Obviously, you get to see him play-ins this time round, But Doxy, Taxa, Guubi, and Click, they all have not just playing experience, they have main event experience at EU Masters. And we have the player who hasn't been able to have the opportunity before. He's coming in and honestly smurfing so far in this game. Most yes in the game, most gold in the game, 4-0 on a scaling champion with some really clutch miasmas.
Look at that, 3,000 between the mid laners right now. That constitutes more than the actual game goal difference at this point. Zwyroo is monumentally massive right now in the game. It's only 4-1 on the scoreboard, but it feels like the way that Makers have been playing the map, the way that they've been playing the game in general, has been just so beautiful to witness. And now, with themselves on Ocean Soul Point, you talked about it earlier, Dan. This is a phenomenal soul for them to get. It's not just any old soul. This perfectly leans into the way they want to play the game.
Yeah, it'll make their front line so much harder to kill in a scenario where Big are already struggling to cut through them. The Cassiopeia and the Senna have so much damage per second that in a fight, if you aren't able to kill them, they just automatically win almost. There's very little you can do to stop the Cassiopeia and the Senna just shredding you other than take them out. And it's so hard. There's so much front line, so much beef just in your way.
Yeah, and you know, people love beef, but in the context of League of Legends, having beef in your way, not a great thing. You generally speaking, want to bring a carving knife at any of these kind of moments. And Kraken Slayer, very good as a substitute for a carving knife. Very good at cutting through that beef on the front line. There are two of them on the side of Big, so it does feel like if there are missed positions from these big tanks like Guubi, for example, in the fights, he will get taken down very quickly.
Yeah, he's not going to live forever. They're not going to be immortal. It's just they're going to be tankier than what Big have to offer. And again, the DPS will be insane from those carries. But it's not like you have an auto-win scenario. The Ocean Soul definitely makes it a lot closer. So I think that should be the priority. You can see Big no. They're already over there. They're already trying to get vision control. Doxy steps up and gets chunked out for his trouble. They need to take this dragon. But you actually see, look at Guubi on this flank. He's going crazy. He just TP'd in very early. He's hiding in that rush. Wait.
This right here is an AD carry player that doesn't have to play AD carry right now. He's having a whale of a time, but not for very long. He's real tanky though and gets the knock-up. How has he got so much value when he was the one caught out? The fear across the team though. Zwyroo stuck in the pit here, turns gold and keeps himself alive. Click gets the kill. Reeker gets the root onto him though, and SLT finishes that one off. In the meantime, Click goes down, and Big have turned the game around. Doxy now, last man standing for his team as Guubi will fall. This is the moment for Big to take control of the dragon.
They needed that fight. They get the dragon off the back of it as well. I mean, maybe Doxy tries to make something happen, but I think he's realized this isn't a fight he can win 1v3. Such a clutch moment. I feel like, honestly, Guubi made a pretty big mistake getting caught out. He still found a lot of value, but the position of the fight was not good for Makers. What Makers want is they want to move in on the dragon, they want to be in the river, and they want Big to funnel in. Instead, we get this. Guubi is caught out. So what is the response from Makers? They're like, okay, we need to save our, well, technically AD carry. So they all dash over. And look at the committance here. They use basically everything getting in. Zwyroo flashes in the scenario, and then he's like, oh, actually, I don't want to be here. I'm stuck. Click's getting chunked out. He's fighting the wolves and Karim in this situation. They take down the Cassiopeia, and then Clink is instantly decimated. And the problem there was just the backline was exposed. This isn't how Makers should be playing their fights. And if they set up like that, they will lose.
So now, Big with a large opportunity for themselves here. I'm desperately trying not to say Big twice in a row here. They have an opportunity to now get control of what's happening on the map. They've closed that gold gap. It's only 1,000 now in favor of Makers. And importantly, they got a couple of shutdowns in all of that as well. Look at the items for SLT with a Kraken Slayer and a Lord Doms. Nobody can 1v1 SLT in the side lane. You can see him on the bottom side, just finished the tier 1. Zwyroo trying to answer in kind up on the top side of the map is Guubi. You can tell, like, it's what I was saying in the fight. This is an AD carry player. He's having a lot of fun playing a tank, being able to just step up and take a bit of damage instead, as the junglers have a bit of a race through the jungle.
It's probably a relief, honestly, when you see like SLT so and Reeker diving onto Click, and you're just like, yeah, I'm what? I'm too tanky to deal with that. Actually, do you want to check how many souls Click has right now? It should be a decent amount.
Because That's one of the things about this fasting Senna. You never really get a proper judgment until you see 92 souls at 24 minutes here. That's a very nice look for Click. Once you get beyond that 100 souls threshold, that's when Senna really starts to tear through health bars.
Yeah, and again, it's just going to get bigger and bigger over the course of the game. The only real concern for this Mkers composition, if it does go late, is it's only a 2-carry composition. And again, these carries do a ton of damage. They scale extremely well. That's not the problem in terms of damage output. But if they die, that's where you're concerned. If you lose one of your carries because they're out of position or they're not able to get damage after a fight, it starts to become a struggle. So they have to make sure they're taking the correct fights here. Now, Guubi's just going to piece it.
Just screams cowards as he runs in the other direction. I thought that was going to be a 2v2, but the recall was finished by Doxy, and obviously Guubi has his ult, so he's quite happy to just get out. And now we'll see Mkers moving back up towards this Baron pit. They've got to regain vision control here, be able to drop control wards everywhere. And once they deal with the control ward that's in the pit here, there'll be an opportunity for them to just have control. And remember, his Cassiopeia, they can burn a Baron real quick. Doxy actually finding a stun onto Reeker, but he dashes out at just the right moment.
You see both teams posturing. I don't think Baron's really going to be on the cards at the moment. The teams are pretty close in goal, but a fight might be.
The route onto Guubi, but he's okay. So let's, theoretically, if a fight was to occur here, Dan, what are you expected to see? Who have we got to keep our eyes on?
I think on big, I'm looking at SLT and Reeker and getting backline access. If they can find a good flank, if they can get on top of Click and Zwyroo and make it a multiple angle fight, they'll do great. If you run in everyone in a straight line towards this Mkers comp, you lose. So angles are key. And with Mkers starting off the Baron, it sets big up for a really strong approach.
We're going full Vel'Koz here with the angles being the key thing. Is big, look for that backline access you talked about. It is a beautiful combo, but they can't quite finish the kills. Zwyroo finally goes down, but it's answered 2 for 1. Big winning the fight 2 times in a row now, and the Kraken Slayers are paying dividends as Click falls. Guubi goes down, and SLT says hello.
Huge win coming out from them. It's set up perfectly, and Seaz on this Rakan was able to get the combo that took out the Cassiopeia. It put Click in an uncomfortable position. And Taxi, he wants to find this steal, but no flash, no ult. And with the Quinn chasing you down, I'm not rating your chances.
Everyone knows the bird is faster than the horse sees. That's the laws of nature. And the EDG flare being flashed here by the big players as they look towards the Baron. The early game didn't look that great. It felt like Mkers were going to look for an upset, but just like Mouse, Big take control of the game against the PG national teams.
And you can see just this huge clump coming out. Reeker instantly follows up in the Cassiopeia, and that's just one of your carries gone. I'm saying how it's a 2-carry comp. One's already gone, and the last one they instantly look to target. Karim flashes in for the stun, blown up almost instantly, and the team fight is just over. And honestly, my big question is, why are you starting the Baron in that situation? We said multiple times how you have...
No?
we said multiple times, it is banter. We said multiple times how they have a scaling composition, how they can lean into that, and they just decide to YOLO Baron and end up paying for it. And now, because they lost that Baron, they end up losing that Dragon as well. They're not in a position to contest. They're now 2,500 gold down. This game was in a good spot for Mkers. They could have ridden this out, and instead they just got, I don't know if it was like impatient, a little bit greedy, a little bit desperate, but they really did not need to make that play.
Large, if correct, good sir. It's a 2,000 gold lead off the back of this Baron so far for Big as they start to push towards the mid lane tier 2. And remember, SLT with a Baron can do a lot of work down in that bottom side of the map. This is the second game in a row today where we see a split pusher being used, and it's the second game in a row where we see massive success on those kind of picks. 6-0-4. We said that Doxy versus SLT was the matchup to watch, and with the counter pick, SLT has taken over the game.
Absolutely has. I mean, at this point, really is becoming a thorn in their side. They're currently using Guubi as the person to clear waves, but, you know, with those items, I actually think you shred through them pretty quickly. The Sion's moderately tanky, but it doesn't really compare to this Quinn. Lord Dominic's doing a lot of work, so you see the whole team has to move down to try and deal with his wave, and that allows some pressure to come in mid as the wave stacks up. But now they will be able to keep things clear. But again, this was a game that Mkers opened up with an advantage in.
Yeah, what I'd love to see here from Big is if they just don't clear the bot wave for a minute, wait for the next mid wave to come and try and sync those waves up, because you've still got 40 seconds of Baron. If you can crash the waves at the same time, you can pressure the towers much more effectively. But when they're alternating the way that we just saw, it feels like you can't actually pressure. And look exactly what SLT's doing. He's waiting, he's not clearing the wave, waiting for that mid lane to be able to push in at the same time so that they can pressure.
Using it more effectively, did waste a bit of time, just kind of push them in, but now the wave comes in bot, they have 4 members to try and respond, but then suddenly it becomes a problem mid, and Tristana takes time to engage.
Big ult from Reeker. We said we needed backline access, and Zwyroo feels the brunt of that. Good knockup coming out. Taxa over the wall now. Maybe this is the turnaround. Click still going strong in the fight, but Karim's going to chase him down, bopping over the wall as the health bars are obliterated. Big have taken everything that they want and now have access to the base.
They're going to be able to take the game here. It looked a bit shaky at the start, but Big are clutch when they need to be. Zwyroo, he was the most fed in the game. We're hyping him up, but in these past team fights, he has been targeted and taken down.
The Prime League and the PG Nationals have faced off twice in EU Masters now, and in both games, the Prime League start off strong. Oh, sorry, PG Nationals start off strong, but the Prime League takes the game. The favorites managed to get control of what was happening, used this Quinn pick beautifully, and Salou managing to do so much with that split pusher.
And again, we really felt like the early game was in Maker's favor. And maybe it was the Quinn. Maybe it was the Quinn that forced them to think, okay, we need to do something. We can't just let this build up because it's going to be a problem. But either way, they forced themselves in that Baron play. They felt like we need a team fight, and they just got decimated. I think this kind of shows why, you know, this is the first seed for the Prime League. I think we've had a couple of upsets today, but Big are just looking like a step above, because this roster they faced against, Makers are a good roster. I expected a lot from this team. I don't think people can sleep on them, but they kind of showed there that they're still not on the level of the first seed for the Prime League.
Yeah, I think that's the key thing is a lot of these teams, especially teams like your Prime League squads like Big, if you do make a mistake in the mid game, it's the ability to punish that sets these teams above the middle of the grand teams in the EU Masters. And when we see tournaments like EU Masters where you've got a few different teams from different skill levels going up against each other, it's those pivotal moments that will separate your average teams from the best teams. Big showing that they know exactly how to punish and understand not only their win conditions, but what their opponents are trying to do.
Absolutely. And, you know, we're going to see some of these clips. And when you see these and you look at the plays Makers are making, it looks good. It looks solid. This looks like this is a team who know what they're doing. But as you said, there's a difference. There's a difference. And it came down the mid game. It came down the decision making. Moments like these could be a little bit overhyped, but it's just not taking the right fight to your team. And I think from here on out, you can look at Zwyroo in these team fights. It's Cassiopeia really clutch for them, but it's consistently targeted. You're in this situation where you're essentially in the middle of their team, trying to do what you can, you get taken down, and it's just repeated again. We'll get the next fight around the Baron. Look at Zwyroo here, instantly targeted by both Reeker and Seaz here, taken out before you can really amount to much. And again, this is a 2-carry comp. Once one carry is down, you don't have enough damage to carry you through. There wasn't space for FLICKR to follow up. And it's going to be more of the same on the next clip when we see once more Zwyroo targeted.
I don't think Reeker had a really good game for himself as well. I don't feel like I was shouting his name enough in these fights, because a lot of the setup was down to Reeker getting good Everfrosts off, getting good ult steals as well, so that then the AD carries could pop off in the fights and do all of the damage necessary. So really, really great stuff to see coming on out. And I mean, just look at that damage chart. That is... that's what a Quinn versus Renekton lane looks like, ladies and gentlemen. It's not pretty.
And I think the thing that really sets it off is just the damage profile coming out from the side of Makers. Because if we saw this be played in the way they wanted in the team fights, the Cassiopeia would have had way more damage. The Senna would have way more damage. But the problem is they weren't given the space. And I think Makers' composition, it's quite easy just to sit back and try and play front to back. The burden of execution wasn't big. They needed that backline access. They had a lot of tools that to utilize effectively. Things like a Quinn don't always stand out in team fights as being excellent picks. But as you said, Reeker, despite being at, you know, I remember we checked in on him. He was on a 3k gold deficit, him alone. And he managed to find more value in these team fights because the execution was there.
Yeah, really, really beautiful stuff coming out from Reeker and from the whole squad of Big. And I think maybe just like, let's remember, this was the first game coming on in, and it felt like coming out of the gates, perhaps didn't know exactly what they were going to be going up against today. And it was a little bit rusty to start with, but they got it together in the mid game. They punished beautifully and then managed to take it towards the end. So with that, Orcs, we can look at our groups. We finally got Group A on the board. Not necessarily the top two that you would have been expecting, with Big definitely getting the win that they should have been expecting, but Kick being upset by a North assist from Augusta. Really, really fantastic stuff to see these upsets coming out, and even Sup Up as well. Managed to go 1-1 so far is a fantastic result for them.
Yeah, I mean, it's been huge, and I think even though that was a win for Big in last game, we also saw Mouse Sports have that really good series against Machiko. We also saw just across the board these regions who don't get as much representation, these minor regions coming up against the big ones like the Prime League, like the LFL, like the Superliga, they are holding their own and they can't be underestimated. I really feel like at this point, any team can beat any team. We obviously have our outstanding ones like K-Corp who are sort of looking a bit above the rest, but the second you start slipping, you will be punished.
Yeah, you certainly will. And we're already rapidly getting towards the halfway mark of our first round robin here. There will be a double round robin, so there'll be plenty of time for these teams to come back, but these scores won't go away. It's been a fantastic day number 2 here. EU Masters, I've been Munchables. I've been joined by Orcs. We're going to sign off for tonight, but we'll see you bright and early tomorrow for day number 3.
Thanks for watching.